Today, we unravel a story not of monsters in the shadows, but of a system that failed a young woman in plain sight. This is the tragic tale of Rachel Hoffman, a 23-year-old biology graduate student whose faith in the law led her to the edge of a grave, and how her death exposed a truth darker than fiction. Rachel Hoffman was not a criminal. A Florida State University graduate with dreams of becoming a veterinarian, she was, by all accounts, a bright and compassionate soul. But in early 2008, a routine traffic stop changed her life forever. Police discovered a small amount of marijuana and ecstasy in her possession, low-level charges under Florida's notoriously harsh drug laws. Facing up to 10 years in prison, Rachel was offered a deal: become a confidential informant, CI, for the Tallahassee Police Department, TPD, take down bigger players in the drug trade, and walk away free. Desperate to avoid prison, she agreed, unaware she'd just signed her own death warrant. Here's where the story turns grotesque. Rachel had no training, no experience, no protection, just $13,000 in cash and a disposable phone. Her mission? To buy ecstasy pills, 2 ounces of cocaine, 2 handguns from 2 men she'd never met, Danilo R. Bradshaw, 23, and Andrea Jabbar Green, and 25, recently fired from their jobs at a car detailing shop. The TPD assured her it would be safe. They lied. Officers later admitted they assumed the suspects wouldn't hurt a girl. A fatal miscalculation. On May 7, 2008, Rachel drove to a pre-arranged meeting spot. The TPD provided no written agreement, no risk assessment, no tracking device, just blind trust. When the suspects abruptly changed locations, her handlers tried to warn her via a faulty wire. The signal failed. Rachel, following orders to adapt, left with Bradshaw and Green in their stolen silver BMW. For the officers monitoring the operation, she vanished the moment the wire cut out. Here's what happened next, pieced together from police reports. Witnesses saw the BMW and Rachel's Volvo idling near a secluded road in Taylor County. One driver described stopping to help a stranded motorist, only to flee when he spotted a camouflage blanket and neat stacks of female clothing in Rachel's trunk. By then, it was too late. Somewhere along a dead-end Gardner Road in Leon County, Bradshaw and Green executed Rachel with the very gun she'd been ordered to purchase. Her body was dumped in a field, left to rot under the Florida sun. The next day, officers arrested Bradshaw and Green after tracing the stolen BMW. But Rachel's fate wasn't discovered until May 9th, when her corpse was found in a remote field, shot once in the back of the head, execution style. The weapon used? The handgun she'd been ordered to buy. The truth came out in the aftermath. An internal TPD review found multiple violations. Rachel had no formal training for undercover work. She didn't know her targets. She had no experience handling firearms or cocaine. Officers violated department policy by sending her into a high-risk sting without backup or supervision. Her parents sued the city not for vengeance, but for accountability. In 2010, Tallahassee settled for $1.6 million, but the scars, they never healed. Rachel's death sparked a fire. Her name became a rallying cry. Due largely to the tireless effort of her family, in 2009, Florida passed Rachel's Law, mandating safety protocols for informants, written agreements, risk assessments, and supervision. But critics argue the system still fails the vulnerable. At trial, prosecutors revealed chilling details. Bradshaw received life without parole plus 30 years. Green pleaded no contest to second-degree murder and got on life without parole. The officers responsible? Suspended with pay and quietly faded into obscurity. Yet Rachel's legacy endures. Her parents founded the Rachel Hoffman Justice Project, pushing for national reforms. She received a posthumous master's degree in environmental science from FSU. Rachel, known for her signature fuzzy purple hat, was a big fan of festivals and a regular at the Spirit of the Sewanee Music Park from the time she was 7 years old. The park is located in north-central Florida, in Suwannee County, United States. Situated on the banks of the historic Suwannee River, the park consists of over 800 acres of camping areas, concert venues, recreational facilities, and unspoiled forests. The park hosts numerous major events each year. Her mother was instrumental in starting a yearly, fitting tribute, the Purple Hatters Ball, which is held at this park, a place that Rachel loved to be. The festival has happened every year since her death to honor her memory and shed light on the dangers and evils of confidential informant programs. In an article shared on liveforthemusic.com said, "As her mother, I'm her spokesperson, her advocate, and I am just trying to make her death have some meaning. I get goosebumps when I talk about her like this. When I'm in the spirit of the Suwannee Music Park for events like the Purple Hatters Ball, it's like she's hovering right over my shoulder. Everybody, all throughout the festival, tells me they feel her all around them. But her truest legacy? Rachel's law has already prevented others from sharing her fate. Still, the question lingers. How many more Rachels will the war on drugs claim before the system learns?" Saanich, British Columbia, November 1987. In November 1987, Jay Cook and Tanya van Cuylenborg, a young Canadian couple from Saanich, British Columbia, embarked on a routine overnight trip to Seattle to pick up furnace parts for Jay's family's business. Jay, 20, was known for his quiet demeanor and reliability, while Tanya, 18, was outgoing and adventurous. They had been dating for about 6 months and were considered a well-matched pair by those who knew them. They departed in Jay's father's bronze 1977 Ford Club van, taking the MV Coho ferry from Victoria to Port Angeles, then driving to Bremerton to catch another ferry to Seattle. A fuel receipt later found in the van confirmed they purchased fuel on the road between Port Angeles and Bremerton. The pair was last seen boarding the ferry in Bremerton. They never returned. When they failed to come home, their families grew concerned, then frantic. Missing persons reports were filed, hospitals were contacted, and even aerial searches were conducted, but there was no trace of Jay, Tanya, or the van. 6 days later, on November 24th, Tanya's partially undressed body was discovered in a ditch near Alger, Washington. She had been assaulted and shot in the back of the head. The next day, her wallet and keys were found near a Greyhound station in Bellingham, along with the abandoned van. Inside were plastic zip ties, gloves, and personal belongings. Tanya's camera was missing. 2 days after that, Jay's body was found under a bridge near Monroe, Washington. He had been beaten with rocks, strangled, and had a pack of cigarettes stuffed down his throat. The brutality suggested a personal motive, but nothing was stolen, and the van was left in plain sight. DNA evidence was collected, but in 1987, forensic technology was limited. The case went cold. Over the next year, both families received anonymous, taunting greeting cards with graphic details about the murders. The sender was eventually identified as a Canadian transient with mental health issues unrelated to the crime. For over 30 years, the case remained unsolved. In 2018, Detective Jim Scharf partnered with genetic genealogist Cece Moore. They submitted the suspect's DNA to GEDmatch, a public genealogy database. Within days, Moore built a family tree leading to William Earl Talbot II, a truck driver from SeaTac, Washington. Investigators collected a DNA sample from a discarded coffee cup used by Talbot. The DNA matched the crime scene. Talbot was arrested and charged with the murders. In 2019, he was convicted on 2 counts of aggravated first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. However, in 2021, his conviction was overturned due to concerns about juror bias. The Washington Supreme Court reinstated the verdict in 2022, affirming the original conviction. The case marked the first in the U.S. to be solved using forensic genealogy, demonstrating the power of DNA in modern investigations. Pointe Saint-Charles is a working-class neighborhood in Montreal. In 1975, it was a place where kids played outside until dark, and families left their doors unlocked. 16-year-old Sharron Prior was a bright student with dreams of becoming a veterinarian. She had a soft spot for animals, a wide smile, and an easy laugh. On March 29th, it was unseasonably mild, and Sharron had made plans to meet some friends at a local pizza place, just 5 blocks from her house. Around 7 p.m., she kissed her mom goodbye, stepped out the front door, and started the short walk to Wellington Street. She never made it. When 11 p.m. rolled around and Sharron still hadn't returned, her mother, Yvonne, knew something was wrong. She contacted police immediately. They searched the neighborhood all night, but there was no sign of Sharron. Not her clothes, not her purse. Nothing. For 3 days, Montreal was gripped by fear. Then, someone found something. On April 1st, about 20 kilometers from where Sharron was last seen, a man walking through a wooded area in Longueuil spotted what looked like a body. It was Sharron. She had been assaulted. She had been restrained with a man's t-shirt, and she'd been murdered. Nearby, investigators discovered tire tracks and evidence suggesting she had been dumped there shortly after her abduction. The brutality of the crime stunned everyone, and worse, there were no solid leads, no witnesses, no suspect. Sharron's case quickly went cold. Over the next 4 decades, her file sat in the cold case unit. Periodically, detectives would reopen it. They interviewed over 100 suspects, ran through theories, but none of it panned out. Until 2015. Advances in forensic science allowed technicians to extract a partial DNA profile from the t-shirt used to bind her. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Then, in 2022, another breakthrough. Using improved methods, investigators pulled a complete DNA profile from both the t-shirt and Sharron's genes. Now they had something powerful, and they weren't going to waste it. They uploaded the DNA into genealogical databases, similar to those used for ancestry research, and found a match to a family name, Romine. That name meant nothing to police in Quebec at first, but digging into it led them to an old criminal file from West Virginia, a man named Franklin Maywood Romine. And the more they learned about him, the more they realized. He was the ghost they'd been chasing all along. Franklin Romine had been convicted of a brutal rape in West Virginia in 1974. Just before he was due in court, he escaped custody and fled across the border to Canada, to Montreal, at the exact time Sharron vanished. Romine had been living blocks away. But in 1976, Romine was captured and extradited back to the U.S., where he served time before being released in the early 80s. He died in 1982 and was buried in Putnam County, West Virginia. Dead, buried, forgotten. Until now. In May 2023, nearly 50 years after Sharron's murder, investigators received court approval to exhume Franklin Romine's body. They flew to West Virginia and watched as the casket was unearthed. They extracted a DNA sample from his remains, and when the results came back, they were undeniable. The DNA matched the crime scene. Romine was the man who killed Sharron Prior. Franklin Romine never faced justice. He escaped prison, took another life, and died before anyone could stop him. But after 48 years, the Prior family finally has answers. Thanks to forensic genealogy, Y chromosome tracing, and nearly half a century of relentless dedication, the case was closed. Sharron's mother, Yvonne, passed away in 2021, just 2 years before the answer came. But her children, who never stopped fighting for Sharron, were finally able to say, "We know who did this," and that's something. Thank you so much for watching. If you found these true stories to be interesting, then please like and subscribe for more content like this and more. Until next time, please stay safe out there, and as always, stay curious.